This is an interesting one right here. The subject is the same spot. It's from Raider 316.
Yeah, this.
Hello. Yeah, I'm gonna read this. Yeah. Okay, hello K100 crew. This past week during a wrestling podcast, JR had several interesting comments about the new generation of workers. Some of his comments echoed the general consensus of K100 about overuse of finishers and high-risk moves being part of the current generation of workers. One interesting quote read as follows. I'm going to read it like he said it because everybody's saying this like they're using the wrong word here, okay? But I'll say the word correctly. I told a kid the quote. I told a kid the other day at AEW that everybody does the same effing spot. All you guys go outside, you cluster up like quails, you stand there in a huddle, friends and foes together, side by side, so you can catch some leaping idiot going over the top who never wins with this move. The guy didn't put the rest of the quote in here, but the rest of the quote was like DDTs are finishers, super kicks are finishers, like basically used to be like that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So the question is, do you agree with his comments on this particular spot? And do you think moves like the DDT or super kick should be protected as a finish rather than simply being simple spots in a match? Derek from Virginia. All right, so two things here that happened. Number one, Brandon Cutler. Do you know who Brandon Cutler is, Conan?
Yeah, the friend of the Young Bucks that wears the face paint.
Yeah.
Brandon Cutler. Do you got the quote, Joe?
Yeah.
You should have all this ready here because there's some other stuff going on. So what did Brandon Cutler say in response to JR, who JR is a legend in the business, JR? Basically making a statement that you can't even argue with this. Because the dive spots look atrocious because everybody stands there looking at the guy to catch him, and everybody does it, and it looks like shit. And it's like there's really no arguing with that. So let's hear it.
So Brandon Cutler responded to this tweet from JR, and he said, this Wednesday on AEW Dynamite, 7 versus 7, we're going to go outside, cluster up like coils, stand there in a huddle, friends and foes together, side by side to catch some leaping idiot going over the top. Can't wait, 8 p.m. TNT, hopefully for 1 million viewers. Let's effing go. Now, do you want me to go to the next one?
Yes.
First of all, let me ask you a question.
Cutler.
Is this some sort of Southern thing that I don't know about, or white guy thing? What does cluster up like coils mean?
No, as I said, that's how everybody's repeating it. When JR was saying it, he said it like it sounded like coils, but cluster up like quails. Is what he meant.
Oh, okay.
So everybody misinterpreted that because quails form in a cluster, like they cluster, they look like that, right? So it was just. He's got that southern drawl and he's got the Bell's palsy. So it came out of coils. Everybody's repeating it like that.
Okay.
So
that's quails.
That's Cutler, who, as we said, was the Young Bucks' friend. He hadn't wrestled for years.
Right. That's basically him and the young generation telling him to off. Go ahead.
So in response to Cutler, from FTR, Dax responded. Imagine not listening to the criticism from the men and women who've shaped our profession and paved the road that allows you to make a living today, all because they hurt your feelings.
Did anybody respond to that one?
No.
Well, look underneath and see if somebody with blue checkmark wrestlers responded to it.
Or if not, put Disco says you're an idiot. Nothing.
So I'll give you a perfect example. Last night, or Friday night on SmackDown, Dolph Ziggler won with a perfectly executed super kick.
Nice.
You guys sold it, knocked him out, covered him 1, 2, 3 because it looked like the guy. Bro, when you execute a move that looks good, everybody sells it. Yes, it could be a finish. There's a clip on making the rounds today, an old match with Flair and Arn against the Armstrong brothers, where the Armstrong's got the guy. Flair comes in behind, kicks the Armstrong and leg, who doubles over, and Arn hits him with the perfect DDT, and the guy sells it perfectly, and it looks like it hurts. So you know what I'm saying? Bro, if any move that's performed properly and the cell is executed correctly can make it look devastating. But it takes effort from both parties involved. What's happened today is with the super kick, people just throw it and slap their leg. 75 to 80% of the time, they don't even take a bump. And they don't even grab their face like it hurt. They just stand there like they're dazed, like one of those video games where your character kind of gets stand there like it's with paralyzed for 2 seconds.
Yeah, the cuckoo birds over your head. Yeah.
That's how these video gamers sell the moves now. Like the video games, So it's like, yeah, bro. I'm just saying, when you watch matches where there's more detail to the moves, the basic moves, and they're sold very well, the match looks good.
And here's a problem, and this would be to Brandon because I come from Lucha, where all that bullshit that you're seeing started. Catching the guy, from the top. Usually one person was doing it. Then it became 2. Then it became 3. And then in the United States, it's become like everybody in the match.
Right. And they all fall down.
And there's like bowling.
You're not everybody. Come on, right?
Yeah. So here's the thing. The big problem is it's like anything else. Like if you've ever seen a real good, like a really bad martial arts movie and the guy misses the kick and you're like, that was so weak. And it just throws you out of the suspension of disbelief. Right. When you watch a Jackie Chan movie and it looks like it took the guy's head off, you're excited. You're like, holy shit. And that's the same thing like wrestling. If you're standing like a bunch of jabrons where the guy's climbing up, and you look at the old Eddie Guerrero in the United States, Eddie would peak and he'd stay selling, and he kind of knew when you were going to be up there, and then he'd kind of turn. But you're waiting there the whole time like nobody notices that. Yeah. And then you get mad, you get called out on it. It looks like and that's one of the problems we have with today's wrestling. And I love new school wrestling. I do love a lot of the new school wrestling, but there's a lot of that's not being done right. And then when you get called out, you get hot, but it looks bad.
And it's been overused like terrible. Sorry, let me just say real quick, Disco, because Darby Allin responded as well. We mentioned Sportskeeda before, which they just had Darby on, and their interviewer asked him, so Jim Ross recently made some comments about certain acrobatic spots, and I would like to know your thoughts on it. Darby Allin says, I love Jim Ross, and I agree with him. One sentence answer.
Smart answer. Let me say this, and this is the perfect example. This is a problem that when people do these spots where you're only wrestling once a week, we're not doing regular shows anymore. We're not doing like a perfect example, like down at the Performance Center where these guys can practice. You want to do the dive spot where the wrestler that's getting dived on is not supposed to know the guy's coming, because if you look at the guy and he comes down, you look like an idiot, right? What I used to do if there was a dive spot, I would tell the guy, hey, I'm going to be on the outside of the ring, okay? I'm going to be on the outside of the ring. I'm going to be yelling at the fans. When I'm coming around the corner, when I touch the ring post, take off, okay? Because I'll be walking around, and when you dive, I'll meet you right there and you'll dive onto me, and I won't have seen you coming. Nobody in the business that thinks that way, and because they're not working with each other enough, they just go out there and do the spot. But spots like that require cooperation to make it look realistic. These guys are not cooperating to make it look realistic. They're just cooperating just to catch the guy. That's where the cooperation is like, okay, you dive, we're going to stand here, we're going to catch you. That's what it looks like. And it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you do that? So it's like,
You meant we were talking about Keith Lee doing dives to the outside earlier and how much he weighs and all that. And it made me think, when did all this start? The cluster, and it's bad. I'm thinking about guys like Bubba Ray Dudley that would do dives in ECW in the mid-90s when he was 400 pounds. Undertaker started doing dives in the late 90s, so you would have 6 guys down there to catch him.
He would do it on a WrestleMania.
Right. But I'm saying the reason you have
one dive a year the guy would do,
But the reason you'd have a lot of guys in that situation is because you'd have a big mother diving on them. Now you have 9 guys in a 10-man tag outside waiting for one of the bucks. Yes, exactly.
And then we all fall like bowling pins.
Exactly.
I mean, it's
and instead of saying, "Hey, let's listen to the people that say it looks like," let's just put over the people that applaud us for our artistry.
Right.
Okay, it just looks bad. That's all it is. And like I said, if you want to look at how to do lucha, look at how Eddie was doing it. Look at WCW in the 90s. Those guys were doing it right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that's a bad look.
Well, the guys that were doing it right were the original luchas that were doing a suicidal tope where you'd missile through the thing, the guy would get you, and you'd plow into the second or third row of fans.
Yeah.
Right. Now
That's another thing people don't know. That the tope, they hit each other with the hands, but the original tope is the guy hits you with his head,
right,
and he's coming so hard, bro. When I was in Mexico, I'm not kidding, they would hit me with everything they had with that tope because they wanted to knock me over the top if they could and get a big pop. They brought it. You don't see that anymore. Now they touch hands. They touch hands.
And sometimes the guy that's diving, they're supposed to do a missile. He's landing on his feet. And when he lands on his feet, he acts like he executed something. Like a perfect landing. It's like, well, what are you trying to do? Hurt the guy or try to do a gymnastics move?
Right.
Right. So it's like...
He's trying to get a pop.
Yeah.